Welcome to today's Corporate Parenting Board here in Huddersfield Town Hall on the 28th of March. I think we have a relatively full membership. Have we any apologies, Sheila?
I'm not aware of any apologies, Chair.
Okay. Can I ask people to look at the minutes of the previous meeting, please? It's item 2. Starting on page 1, and have we any actions or reports on questions that were raised at that meeting? Have you anything on the dental things, Jill?
Yes. We're working. I was asked about a feedback about the flexible commissioning project, which has been around for some time now, but has been a real benefit to our vulnerable children. It means that we can access certain dental practices who prioritise vulnerable children. They have extended it actually to care leavers and other vulnerable groups now. I was wanting an update on the practices, and I have been told that each of the individual practices throughout West Yorkshire and Humber have been contacted. A small number have left, but generally there's been more dental practices come on board. I have asked for an updated list because we do use these. We've about 5 in Kirklees and there's 1 in Calderdale that we're aware of, but there could be more. And these are something we go to and encourage our foster carers to go to as well. And I'm told that there is a list now. I was told that this list had been circulated several weeks ago to the Directors of Public Health. I have contacted our Public Health Manager to ask if anyone has located this list. Up till now, I haven't had a response, and I don't know who would have received that, but whoever does it needs circulating wider so that we're aware which practices to actually contact. But as we sit here, we're still using the project and it's been working well.
Thank you very much for that. That's a comprehensive response on that. Any other matters arising from the minutes of the last meeting? No, I'm not seeing anything. Are we therefore happy to accept those minutes, please, board members? I'm seeing nods of heads, so I'll take that as a yes. Interest, can I just remind board members, if there are any disclosable pecuniary interests, I love that phrase, please put them on the form in your pack and make sure Sheila has them before you leave. Admission of the public, everything in this meeting today is in public. Deputations and petitions?
No deputations and
no
petitions.
Deputations and petitions. Can I also just say that Councillor Lawson has indicated he needs to leave the meeting at 11 o'clock, so we hope we give him time to ask any questions or express himself before he has to go to another appointment. So if I could move us then please to item 6, which is the Children's Performance Highlight Report. And Ophelia, are you going to start us off with that, just with an introduction as such, or highlighting any aspects of it that you want to bring to the board's attention?
Good morning. Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Just in regards to the performance data in regards to children looked after, within the information you'll see that we've got a improving picture in regards to the information, so I don't want to spend a significant amount of time exploring that because I think the data speaks for itself. We continue to work across services, so we're working collaboratively with our virtual school, just ensuring that our children and young people are having opportunity to access education, that they remain in school and doing different things, being creative in relation to that area of work. Just in terms of one of our areas that we want to look at is how we actually get feedback and consultation with our young people, because I think that's really critical, because that will inform and shape what we want to do next and how we improve our services. So I'm working with Children's Rights so that we will have a session scheduled in May to have a specific consultation feedback with our young people, because I think that's really important, because that will inform our strategy going forward. We want to look at the work around how we really embed as well the corporate principles, corporate parenting principles. So we'll come back with just in terms of what will that look like and how that will be shaped going forward. But yeah, I think just in terms of our children looked after, we've got a positive picture really in terms of the work, and I just want again is just to look at the continuing increase in our special guardianship orders. I think that's a really another good news story just in relation to that. So in the information you'll see that we're month on month improving that information, and just to say in terms of the support, both financially and sort of any physical support, emotional support is provided with all our special guardianship carers as well. So and then they have access to other services as well. So we're maintained to ensure that they're not missing out in terms of any opportunities. So that's still in place. So I'll just stop there in terms if there's any questions around our children looked after.
So, colleagues, has anybody got any questions for Ophelia as such? Not seeing anyone. Oh, Councillor Reynolds.
It's all right. It's just occurred to me. It must have been at least 2 meetings ago. I can't, and I'll have a look. But I know we talked a little bit about the outcomes for special guardians children compared with adoptive or foster carer children. Because they're the ones that we don't have data on, really. And I just think it would be good to have a little bit more data in a positive way. We encourage them. We think that it is a good idea that they stay within the family, that's fine. But I think to reinforce as well our own beliefs that we are doing the right thing, because we are quite different to other local authorities, and I think it would be nice to have the backup there of a little bit of data, if possible, please. Just to see how they do, particularly longer term as well. I think maybe we need to talk about educational outcomes as well. But thank you.
Okay, so I think that will be really helpful just to bring a focused, so that we have a separate section around special guardianship order. So again, so we can look at their educational outcomes training, and I think there'll be a bit about their accommodation and where they're living and whether they're staying close to family. So I think it'd be quite good done to do a focused response in terms of where did they start and what are the outcomes. So we can do that. So just determine and agreeing a date for scheduling the special guardianship specific on the agenda, so we can pick that up in terms of when would be the best time to do that.
Thank you for that. I think that's something we need to add to the agenda plan as such, but I think that would be welcome. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. In the adoption service narrative, we talk about improving timelines around transitional payments for foster carers adopting the child in their care. It says that this reduces delay, but it says that we have a process in place right now, which is encouraging. I just want to see if we've got any more information about that and what difference it's making, or is it too early to tell? So I just wanted to pick that out of the adoption.
Would you just tell me which page you're
we're on page 23.
I guess that's
pack.
where you were.
Yeah.
Has anybody got a response to that, Tom?
Councillor Kendrick, Tom Brailsford, Service Director for Resources Improvement and Partnerships. Yeah, we have a transitional arrangement in place at the moment, which is agreed across West Yorkshire as part of the One Adoption arrangement. And I think we're currently, myself and Vicky, are currently reviewing that process. But we do feel that having those transitional payments in place for a period of time really does help with the stability and the transition. So it's something that we're keen to look at and revisit and make sure that we're getting the right outcomes for that, Chair.
Thanks for that. It's just it seems really important, and it's encouraging to know that these things that are within our own control that can assist these transitions are being dealt with and being addressed, and that's really important, because I note in the table that we do have this kind of plateau of timescales for adoption. I'm just wondering, if one is affecting the other, then it's good that we're doing everything in our power to address it. That's all.
Thank you for that. Can I ask, Louise, are there any items within this highlight report that you want to identify for the board?
Morning, Louise Hallis, Head of a Virtual School. There's no new data, national data available yet, just so we're continuing with the 100% PEP completion. We are at 99% on the initial PEP completion, which is slightly down. It was just one PEP that was slightly over the timescales. And then the PA is quite static at the moment, and a key area that we're continuing to work on, but there's no other updates for this board. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any questions around education, the virtual school as such? Not seen any. Thank you for that. Jill, do you want to highlight aspects of the children looked after health part of the report, please?
Yes, good morning. Jill Addy, Designated Nurse for Looked After Children. The report shows, for those that are maybe not familiar, there's two sets of data usually on my sheet, and one of them is the rolling 12-month data, and the other is the locale and monthly data, and they're quite interesting to sort of look at together. So first of all, the initial health assessments. This is January data, and since then we've got February's data, so I can just give you a very brief update. January's was 83% of the initial health assessments completed in the 20-day timescale with just 2 breaches. We're still using the hybrid telephone and face-to-face model. This has been very successful. This came from the pandemic times, but because we've still got limited clinic time, we've actually carried on with this. However, the age 16 plus initial health assessments and unaccompanied asylum-seeking children initial health assessments are now just face-to-face, and that's partly to do with engaging with young people face-to-face. The older children is easier, whereas on a telephone call they're not always as eager to perhaps join, and the unaccompanied we need translation services, and because those are limited, it's better to just do it in one appointment. The team capacity has continued to be effective, but I'm just mentioning here that in December we did get an interim temporary measure of a bank nurse for 7.5 hours a week to just help with the preparation of the IHA templates, and that's because these days using System 1 we have got a vast amount of historical information that can really impact that assessment and are really important. But that has put a lot of pressure on our team, but having this extra nurse, we've only got her for a short time, but she's definitely eased that pressure on the team. And the result of that is that their main job really for my specialist nurses is the review health assessments, which you'll see next. The data has very much improved, and I am convinced that this is to do with having that extra nurse. So our nurses can concentrate on the review health assessments out in the community and are not coming back to see that actually there's a number of templates need preparing that really has impacted on them before. So the data for January was very good, both the 12-month rolling programme and the monthly, there were 9 breaches in January, and 6 of these were due to the capacity in the team, and 3 with arrangements with carers. There's nothing untoward about those arrangements with carers. It's just that we try to be really flexible regarding after-school activities for the children, holidays, etc. So sometimes you will have those rearrangements to take them out of timescales. In February, there were only 5 breaches. 2 of those capacity, 2 that the children were ill, and one of them we do have to ask other areas to do these health assessments on our behalf if it's a long way for our nurses to travel. And what we're finding is throughout the UK, people are having the same capacity issues, and they will, people always do agree to do our assessments. It's very rare for them not to do, but sometimes there's no time scale. And for this particular one, it was really important we got it done, and it was from Nottingham. So one of our nurses did travel to Nottingham, and we have done another couple in Nottingham as well recently. But that is sometimes just something that we have to do. The dental checks. The difference in the data there seems slightly extreme, but one is the rolling 12-month data and one is monthly data. The reasons why there's sort of that difference is partly this is to do with children. As soon as they're age 1, Liquid Logic picks them up as being out of date for dental checks when actually dentists may not well take them on until they're at least 1. Locally, we count it from 18 months onwards because we do know that that's more of a likely age that children will get registered. So that's one reason. We've also had some large sibling groups come in, so when you're trying to find dental, sometimes that can delay things if we're trying to get it for a large group, especially if they go placed out of area. So when there's placement moves, children have to re-register, and that can affect the data as well. But what I'd like to say is actually the monthly data is very good, and February's data is showing that the under 5s was 75% and 96% for the over 5s having attended. And that's just on those review health assessments that were done in that month. Registered with dentists, this is something that Locala collects. This was shown at 92 for the under 5-year-olds and 98% for the over 5-year-olds, which is excellent. And for February, it's showing that 100% of our under 5s who had their review health assessment in February were registered. And this is where the flexible commissioning project that we mentioned earlier comes in. We are directing people to use those practices if possible. And the substance misuse is for young people, this was in January, 0.87%. These are who are known to use substances that has a significant impact on the daily life. But we do know that any young person who informs through a review health assessment that there are any issues with substances, that they are referred to our outreach service. They meet with us every month. And that is this afternoon actually, and we do communicate with each other and refer children, and or also just make sure that those young people are accessing the service or are being offered the service. And that's the health things. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Jill. That's a comprehensive report. Anybody any questions on that as such? There's only a small part in this performance data on youth justice issues. I don't know if there's anybody here who wants to say anything about that. No? Have we any questions about the youth justice part of the report, mainly on page 20? No? Okay. So are colleagues happy to accept the performance data as such? Yeah. So if we can move on then please to, oh dear, I've missed a page. I was leaping to item 8, but it's item 7, which I don't see Joel in the room. So who is it you, Tom, doing that one? So sufficiency needs assessment and strategy. Over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm doing this on behalf of Joel Hannah, who's not available today. So this is bringing into view for members the sufficiency strategy, which is our duty to provide sufficient homes for our children and young people, and I'd rather not call it sufficient actually. What we need to be doing is providing outstanding, caring, loving homes for our children and young people. Sufficiency is the term that we use in terms of the strategy. So what you'll see is the format of the strategy is basically a needs assessment, which looks at the number of children we've got in care, the types of settings that they're placed in, and some kind of future predictions in demand. Now, since this was written, our children looked after has actually reduced since it was written. So some of the figures aren't as accurate as they could be. I think it's worth noting the stability issues that are in the paper. So in terms of our long-term placement stability, which is children who have been in their current home for 2.5 years or longer, is very high and is above regional and national average, which is really positive. Our placement stability for children and young people who've had 3 or more moves in 12 months is still in line with regional and national average, but you'll see has increased since last year, I think from 6% to around 10%, which is reflective really of some of the challenges we're having in the market and the sufficiency market with finding our children and young people family setting homes with IFAs or fostering or in residential. I think I'm pleased to report that the majority of our looked after children, I think about 530 of them, are in family-based settings. So whether that's a connected carer, an unconnected carer with wider family, or our internal foster care or independent fostering agencies, which is really positive, which means there's a smaller proportion of our children and young people in residential homes. You'll also see the profile back to 2017, where we had around 65 of our children and young people in residential settings, which has significantly reduced over time. So there are some real positives in terms of that in our analysis and our makeup of children in family settings. However, we still have challenges on a day-to-day basis in terms of finding our children and young people the appropriate loving family setting. So I think in the report it says over the next 3 years we anticipate that we need to recruit at least 100 of our own internal foster carers, which I think is probably the right assessment of that. And I think it also talks about us increasing our internal residential provision, which we're currently doing. So we've got a new home that's due to open in the spring, and we're also we've got a home that's currently being shut for refurbishment that'll be back online. And we're also exploring things called satellite children's homes, which are attached to our existing homes, but only provide care for up to 2 children and young people. So we're looking at having 3 of those as part of that. So I would say, it's notwithstanding that, it's going to be a challenge in terms of, recruiting 100 foster carers over the next 3 years. But my assessment would be, and the sufficiency assessment, is that we're in a relatively stable place in terms of our split, but actually much more to do. And as ever, people will be sick of hearing me saying this, but it's really important that as corporate parenting board members, we promote the benefits of fostering, we promote the support that we're offered, because we, on an ongoing basis, we are going to need foster carers. So that's just my summary. I don't intend to go into any more detail, Chair, but happy for any questions and comments.
Thank you for that, Tom. I don't know if anybody has any questions as such. Can I just clarify one thing? You talked about satellite homes attached to children's homes. We're not talking about physically attached. We're talking about under the same management of a particular children's home manager, aren't we?
Yeah, sorry, Chair, I should have been clearer about that. What that means is that you have to change the registration of an existing children's home under that manager to extend the capacity of that existing children's homes by 2 more. You can have a maximum of 6 beds across a number of sites. But yeah, not physically attached. The manager oversees the satellite, and I think it does have to be within a certain miles of range. I think it's about half an hour drive. You've got to be able to get to the new homes. But yeah, and I think the other thing is that it's worth saying that as part of those arrangements, it does give us the ability where children and young people might be in a crisis or they need a period of assessment to kind of step up and step down those homes. So it means that we can bring staff in, make sure children and young people are safe and assessed, but when we've got some move on plans to a different setting, then we can kind of step that home down again, which is that kind of flexibility will really help, I think.
Yeah, I am aware of talking to you and colleagues how the challenges are so great at times suddenly, particularly if you've got a sibling group and what have you. I think the ambition for children to live in a family home is great. I think it has to be remembered for some children and young people that isn't the most appropriate, and a children's home for them is the right place. And I think planning into the future is absolutely essential. So I absolutely welcome this report. It is here for information as such, the report and the attached strategy. Anybody got any comments or questions? We're happy to accept that as information, so thank you very much for that, Tom. I keep trying to turn my microphone off when I've finished a sentence. That's not the right thing to do. So, we move to item 8, the annual fostering report. Anna Gledhill. Yeah.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, that's me, Anna Gledhill. I'm the service manager with the responsibility for the fostering service. I'll try not to duplicate what Tom's said, because this obviously overlaps in terms of the sufficiency strategy, but this drills down a little bit more into some of the numbers. So the reporting period, I just need to explain why it's October 21 to September 22, because we provided a report for an Ofsted monitoring visit, which detailed the period before. So what we propose is that then we'll bring in line 6 monthly reporting in line with annual reporting structure. So just to sort of explain why the figures are as they are. So I'll just briefly talk through, I won't go through all of it. So on page 55, which links into what Tom says about seeing a change in the ages of the children that are looked after. I'm bringing that up because we've had a reduction in the children under 1 and a rise in people over the age of 16, and that impacts on our sufficiency and our foster carer profile, because we have a lot of existing carers whose profile is to care for younger children and not for older children, but we've seen a change in terms of the demand and the need of the age for requirement for foster placements. So between the reporting period, we approved 33 fostering families, and we 26 foster carers resigned or were deregistered. So the ones that resigned or were deregistered, the reasons are varied, but the majority of the deregistrations are for positive reasons, special guardianship orders and connected carers. And we review all of our resignations, and we have an exit interview policy as well, where we offer exit interviews and we can learn if there are any resignations from that for the service. But on the whole, the deregistrations are positive because they're for special guardianship orders. So total increase of fostering families is 7. So the 33 approved foster carers were made of 19 connected carers and 14 unconnected carers. So again, that's something to celebrate in terms of children being placed with their families. But of course, we want to recruit more non-connected carers, more mainstream carers. In terms of our recruitment, we had 246 enquiries during the reporting periods to be a foster carer, and that resulted in 14 mainstream approvals. So you'll see that the number reduces from the inquiries, and what we want to do, as detailed in the sufficiency strategy, is increase the number of inquiries and increase our conversion rate as well, so that more inquiries are turning to more positive approvals at panel. Page 58 details the allowances that were within that reporting period, but I'm sure you'll be aware, Councillor Kendrick, that we have agreed an uplift to foster care allowances in the year 22 to 23, and that Joel, Hannah and I will be working with carers in the KFN to look at an increase for 23-24. So page 61 details our special guardianship orders, which again is something to be celebrated, and also really the work that the connected persons team carries out. So they work in quite short time scales, and they undertook 115 what we call viability assessments, which are initial assessments of family and friends to see if they're able to be approved as connected carers. And ultimately that resulted in 41 children having special guardianship orders, which is really, really positive. Page 63 details all the fostering panel activity, so I won't go through all of that, but you'll see in the reporting period there was 32 varied cases that were heard by panel. 132, sorry. And then finally we detail our priorities, which links in to the information that Tom's just shared, which is around increasing our number of carers in Kirklees, reducing the number of IFAs, and should try to develop different strands of foster caring models and to review our pay offer.
Thank you very much for that. Questions or comments, colleagues? Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. You did actually, thanks for the briefing there, because that you did touch on what I was going to ask about, which was the attrition rate between enquiries and then the next stage. And I think it's good to hear that we're trying to address that. But what are we doing to keep those inquiries live? Do we have a programme of ongoing contact with those people, or is there that kind of work going on in the background there?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So we've just recently refreshed our recruitment plan. So some of that includes, we have weekly performance meetings to have a look at the figures that are coming through, what the inquiries are, where the inquiries are from, so that we can see and perhaps target, you know, if it's on the internet or have they seen it somewhere in the community, and also to understand why inquiries haven't progressed. So we're monitoring timescales, tracking, making sure that we've got a customer service response as well to people that are making inquiries, that we're responding to them in a timely way. We've also worked with our communication and marketing department to look at a more targeted marketing plan, as well as just having a presence within Kirklees, but actually approaching or targeting populations or groups of people who are more likely to be foster carers, as opposed to just on the back of a bus, which, you know, research tells us that we're more likely to get more appropriate inquiries through, because what we want to get is the right inquiries, and not our team spending lots of time if it's 200 inquiries that actually aren't appropriate or aren't suitable. So we want to make sure that the inquiries we're generating are appropriate, so that our conversion rate then actually is higher, because it's the right ones that are coming through.
So it's just that getting that granular detail really about, you know, the reason why somebody doesn't follow up an inquiry. You know, is it because they're having house renovations, or this is like a pre-retirement inquiry, or if it's just a matter of the time isn't right now. You know, it's that kind of using the opportunity to go back to them later on when the time is right. So that sounds exactly like what you're doing, so thank you.
Yeah, we do that. We follow up. If there's ones we check, they're happy, and there's a tracker. And then in the performance meetings, it's checked that all those people are rung and followed up, because you're quite right, sometimes the time isn't right for some people.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Reynolds.
It's not so much a question, but an observation, really, a joined up thinking. On page 12, there's the section on diversity of foster carers, and the comparison between the ethnicity of the foster carers compared with the children, and there is still that mixed heritage gap, isn't there, with Black Caribbean, Black African, White and Asian, and that actually fits in with a lot of the national data on the most disadvantaged and the most at-risk children, I think, particularly boys in that area. So I think, yeah, we need to keep an eye on, obviously, that you've commented that it's a recruitment priority. It is a national recruitment priority, but I think those are identified as some of our most vulnerable nationally, and I think we just need to be very careful that we do everything we can. Yeah, because I think that would help. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a very important comment, and I think it's something the Corporate Parenting Board needs to keep an eye on, as well as I'm sure colleagues in the service do anyway. I'm not seeing other questions. Can I just ask a question? And I am to some extent aware about this, but the increases for foster carers, have we got a start date for those? Are they starting in April, or is that still to be decided? Does anybody know?
So I need to double check with finance, because it's my first day back yesterday, but as I understand, it should be paid should start in the first week of April, but I just need to confirm, so I can do that today and I can get back to you to confirm that.
Yeah, I think our foster carers would love to know. You want to come in, Tom?
Yeah, Chair, I also believe there's been some discussion about backdating as well to a certain period of time, so just to give reassurance that that's also in view.
Thank you very much. I think that's absolutely important. These are invaluable families, people who look after a lot of our children, and it is essential that we look after them properly. Just another comment, the 132 cases of panel activity for fostering, to somebody perhaps outside it may not seem very much. As somebody who years ago sat for a long time on fostering panel and spent hours and hours of my life not only reading the papers, which is a bit like receiving Encyclopedia Britannica because it has to be that detailed, and then spending whole days at a time where you might manage to do 3 or 4 cases because it's looked at so thoroughly. That 132 is quite stunning actually as a number. I just wanted to make that comment because I think if people haven't experienced that, they don't understand the complexity of it. So the work that goes into it and the work of the panel is much appreciated. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for that, Anna. Thank you.
Colleen.
Oh, Colleen, sorry, I hadn't seen you.
Hiya. Yeah, just regarding the 5% that we got for the past year, that the KFM were not involved in those negotiations. That was done something without us. We feel quite disappointed in that, although going forward, I know we're going to be included. Just to say thank you for my £8.87 a week wage rise, which we had a 0.14% a few years ago. So bear in mind that the £8.87 covers probably 8 years. I'd just like to say thank you for that wagely increase of £8.87.
Thank you for that. And I'm glad to hear that the fostering network, Kirklees' fostering network, will be included in discussions and plans going forward. Right, we'll move on yet again. So, the Voice of the Child report. Zoe?
Morning, Zoe Prince, Service Manager with oversight of the Children's Rights Team. I don't need to repeat the content of the report, and I just wanted to update Corporate Parenting Board that we seek to do a piece of scoping work with our children and young people to see how we can ascertain their voice for Corporate Parenting Board, because we recognise that the information included in this report is limited, with a focus specifically on the children that live in our Kirklees children's homes. So we hope to include that in something that Ophelia mentioned earlier on, some scoping days in May 2023 to speak with the children who are represented on our Children in Care Council and Care Leavers Forum and the wider children who are looked after by Kirklees.
Thank you very much. Anybody got any comments or questions? Councillor Reynolds.
Just a quick one. Are the special guardianship children included in that scoping exercise?
I don't see why they won't be.
Thank you. Can't see anybody else asking to speak on that. Thank you. Virtual school governing body update. This is a verbal update. I don't know. We always seem to be out of sync with the virtual schools meetings. But Councillor Pattison, if you want to start us off.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, we are always out of sync, really. We meet sort of half-termly, and this board meets 6 times a year, so they don't quite go together. But anyway, we last met on the 28th of February, which was in between, really, the last meeting of this body and today. We received, as usual, a comprehensive head teacher update from Louise Hallis, the virtual school head teacher, which was which, as ever, was pleasing in terms of the information that we received. I mean, we've had some of that already here today. The dip in, well, hardly a dip, but the PEP information, or the PEPs being completed in time. I mean, it was one child with a particular reason why that PEP wasn't completed in time. As usual, we had pleasing information presented to us, and the dashboard, as I said last time, and I will continue to say, is a great improvement. Because we've got such, well, good information overall, we are now, as a virtual school governing body, receiving deep dives on a particular subject or issue at each meeting. And this one was on suspensions and permanent exclusions. I mean, which again for the virtual school is good because it's nil. No children have been permanently excluded, certainly. But we did, by way of a case study, look into a particular child who had been suspended from school, and we had a lot of information about that, which gave us some reassurance that certainly that the virtual school are on top of ensuring that certainly we continue the no exclusions attainment, but that we're also on top of suspensions as well. But I won't go into because it was a particular young person, I won't go into the details of that particular case. But I will now sort of hand over to Louise to give a bit more detail where she feels it appropriate. Thanks.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, we do continue with the no permanent exclusions at the moment. However, you know, suspensions is one of our key priority areas, and to ensure that if a young person does receive that notice for a permanent exclusion, that we do everything possible to ensure that the right thing happens for that child at the right time. As it stands at the moment, every single permanent exclusion has either been withdrawn or rescinded, so that we've got a better opportunity for the young person to be able to progress and give them better outcomes. We went through the action plan, so we have a clear action plan in place for virtual school, and it was great that the governors felt assured that we're moving forward in all areas of the action plan. And then the other area that we looked at was just the PEP, so the actual personal education plan, and actually what actually happens in a meeting. And we gave governors the reassurance around what's actually in the meeting and how we structure them and what it actually looks like, to give the governing body a real feel of what a PEP meeting's like for a young person, and what it looks at for their education. So they were the main areas that were covered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have colleagues got questions? Oh, Councillor Reynolds is straight in with a question.
No, it's not really a question again. But I picked up the zero exclusions, and I think it would be really interesting to see what learning we could take from the virtual school as to how that's been achieved and how that can be transferred or considered with the ongoing Kirklees Futures ambition to reduce all exclusions. So that would be really interesting just to see how you do that and how you minimise that, to see what we could learn from it. Thank you.
I think Councillor Patterson will agree that actually when we went through the case study, it is an awful lot of work that does go in each time, that there's a potential permanent exclusion. You know, there's an awful lot of work with schools, the providers, the young people, all the people around a child who are supporting a child. There is an awful lot of work that goes into every single young person, and the prevention of suspensions as well, so that we don't result in that permanent exclusion.
Yeah, that's really good best practice. I think we need to look at that, and I know it's huge, but we need to see if we can adapt that better.
I think Councillor Patterson also wants to comment on.
Yeah, I'm as ever, right across the board or across the piece, we would always want to learn from good practice and best practice and good outcomes. But I think this one is so complex. I mean, certainly the virtual school. I mean, how many? It's over 200 children. In 200 schools, well, almost. I mean, the range of schools, the range of children, where they are in the country even, is so complex. I think it would be difficult to sort of pick out one particular thing about good practice, other than Louise says a lot of hard work. But what we can, of course, we'll learn from.
Thank you very much from that. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Thank you, Louise. So if we move to item 11, please. Children's Ambition Board update. This is an update that I'm not sure if Vicky or Tom are going to do this. Thank you, or both.
Yeah, I can cover it off, Chair. Thank you, and then Vicky will come in if I think there's anything else we've missed. We did our usual bit at the start of the board where we look at the data, excuse me, and strengths and improvements that are required across the three areas. So, yeah, family support and child protection, learning and early support, and resources improvement and partnership, which is also the same data that we bring to Children's Scrutiny Panel as well. So we just like to be open and transparent about that. Then we had an update on the 3 key strategies. So that's about achieving outstanding outcomes for our children and young people. Ophelia did a bit of an update on support for care experienced young people, and then Joel did 2 updates in terms of our Homes for Children plan, in terms of our improvement plan about our internal homes and recruiting foster carers, and some information about unregulated provision and the new provision that's coming in next year in terms of PERS 16 regulation. Joe did a bit of an update in terms of the learning strategy, which was really positive. And then we had a report on the quality of our education, health and social care plans in terms of quality and timeliness. And I think that was it overall, Chair, unless there's something I've forgot, Vicky.
Thank you very much for that. Anybody, any questions or comments? No? Okay, well, we'll move on then, please, to updates from board members on interactions with services. Who's been interacting with any services to do with children's? Yeah, come along now. Don't be shy.
I know you have as well. I went to a Mockingbird meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they have cake. I love it. It was really enlightening, actually. There was a whole range of different kind of carers there, and some really interesting discussions. And they said they'll have me back as well. So I was quite pleased about that. It'd be really nice. Yeah.
Good to hear that you behaved yourself this time, Elizabeth. Councillor Marchington, are you wanting to comment or speak on this one?
Yeah, we've just children and young people scrutiny have been doing our regular visits. So we've completed visits to all the child protection team clusters now, with the visit to Huddersfield a few weeks ago. I think what we are picking up, I think we've reported before about increasing caseloads. At the moment, that seems to be manageable, but that's a future thing to be borne in mind, particularly for us as corporate parents. Also recruiting, I think recruitment and retention, just to make sure, and we talk about that in terms of foster carers, but also to make sure that we've got well-staffed teams within child protection, within children's social work, to make sure we're getting the best outcomes for children. So that was really positive. I went to yesterday, let me just check the particular meeting, referral and review meeting. I think that's the second visit we've made to that as scrutiny. And again, it's just a real privilege to listen to partners holding each other to, look at scrutinising them, looking at data. That's done on a daily, weekly, and a 6-weekly and an annual basis, looking at how things are changing. And then sort of looking at deep dives on, observing them do deep dives on particular cases, just to make sure that the right decisions are being made. And that was a privilege as well. I think the only one we've done since last meeting was the mental health support team. So a few of us, including Councillor Reynolds, Elizabeth, we got a chance to go up to Hills, one of the local schools, and participate in that, and then went to meet the partnership team of partners as well. That's really good to see that good work going on.
Thank you very much for that. It is always welcome when members of scrutiny, Children's Scrutiny Panel, go out and about to services, and it's reassuring, I'm sure, to colleagues to get that feedback about, their confidence in what teams are doing, so it's always very welcome. So thank you and colleagues for that, Councillor Marchington. In terms of what my interactions have been, sadly, a different virus from COVID laid me low for over 4 weeks, so I missed some appointments that I had arranged in my diary, but they've been reset again. Following the Ambition Board, where Joel and Hannah had talked about unregulated and unregistered homes, I did feel I wasn't clear in my own mind about that, and he very kindly gave me a short online briefing that has helped confirm that I do actually know what's being referred to. I suddenly had a moment of doubt. And I'm really embarrassed to say I cannot remember the title of the meeting I went to. It was with colleague dealing with SEND. It was a hugely long meeting. It was like their SLT meeting. I think it went on for about 3 hours, but actually the time passed very quickly. It was very interesting to hear how they were approaching really difficult situations, and they were very welcoming and allowed me to join in the discussion, which is always a benefit for me who likes to talk all the time. And then last week I went on Monday tea time, I went to the Children Looked After Council. And that was interesting, and the members of staff there were said, oh, you know, you've come to explain about the corporate parenting board. I made a poor fist of it, I think they were no wiser at the end of it. So I have reflected that I perhaps need to send some very short little bullet points. I think they've had the terms of reference. Well, I don't think that's helpful to young people to grasp what we're talking about. They were very welcoming young people and talked about issues, and we did talk about how they might share their views with the board, and we talked about a video, and there was some anxiety. They didn't want to appear in a video, and I can understand that. I did say you could do it as glove puppets or cartoons or whatever, or just your voices telling us, and they seemed at a loss. But then when they started talking about their own personal experience, it was absolutely clear, you know, sometimes about timeliness of our response as an authority to things that are absolutely important to them, but we're a bit slow in sorting some of the things out, you know. And I think it's messages like that. But so I will work harder to send some more information that might be of help. I was due to go to the Care Leavers Forum last night, but I'm afraid my health sort of totters at the moment, and I wasn't well enough to go, so I had to send my apologies, but I will be going to a future meeting. Has anybody else got any other interactions they want to report? No? So if we move on to I think the last item then, which is the agenda plan. I think we've already mentioned, Ophelia, that the whatever the that needs the multi-agency looked after partnership, which is planned and proposed, needs to be fitted into the agenda plan. And I think perhaps discussions with you about how regularly, whether it's every meeting or periodically, we'll do going forward. Are there any other items in the agenda plan that we do feel need to be added in or brought forward a bit more? We've not got a lot populating the planners yet. And of course we need the date setting for the future year as such. Or are we content that a lot of the things that are listed will go forward into the plan? I mean, in the end, if colleagues have a thought, whether it's officers or councillors or whoever needs to go in, you can contact me separately and we can add them in as such. Ophelia.
Sorry, I do need to add in the special guardianship order overview report into the agenda.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. Thank you for that, to remind me. Yeah, you got that. Yeah. All right, are we happy with that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've been very efficient and speedy this morning, and that brings us to the end of this meeting. So we will all leave early with Councillor Lawson. Thank you very much for your attendance and contributions. The end of the meeting is now.